Listen up. Listen up.
Shine is that sparkling beam. The name of the game is Lightworks. Light up the slips. The name of the game is Lightworks. Shine is that sparkling beam. The name of the game is Lightworks. Light up the slips. The name of the game is Lightworks.
microphone working? Oh, it is. There we go. Hello, everyone. Alrighty. Before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that tonight's event is being taking place on Wurundjeri Woiwurrung land, belonging to the people of the Eastern Kulin Nations. I want to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to any First Nations people joining us here tonight. We're here tonight to discuss the importance of community, something which First Nations people have been practicing on this land for thousands and thousands of years, and that was before us. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So welcome everyone to our Push Masterclass. Hello, hello. Welcome along. My name's Mia, my pronouns are she, her, and I am tonight your host for this excellent masterclass we have on building your music community. Can we get a round of applause? Yes, amazing. Okay, I personally am one of the producers at SYN. Don't know if you've heard of it. Little community radio station. We love it. Tune in. It's 90.7 FM. But I produce our local music show, which means that I know a lot about some local artists and people around the scene. And most importantly, I really care a lot about my community. Community is something that I work very closely with in my role, and at a community station, it's really important that we have our ears to the ground and understand what it means to be voices for our community, and by extension, really make sure that we're including our community and are providing what our community needs. I've also done a little bit of like push adjacent work, but I used to be in a freezer. If anybody knows what that is, if you've been in a freezer, make some noise. There we go. I was in my local community freezer, so I also have a little bit of a like push connection through that, and I know how important the work that the push does is for their community, and by extension all the freezers work that they do for community is especially in live music. But that is enough about me. I am so incredibly honoured to be partaking in this masterclass tonight on building your music community. We'll be discussing things like building a dedicated fan base, attracting community through social media, and networking to develop a strong music community. So, a little bit about the Push. I've already kind of mentioned it, but if you're not already familiar, the Push is a youth music organisation that has been around for over 30 years, which is a pretty big feat. They deliver programs for young people to develop their skills and music industry networks. If you've been to one of our masterclasses before, you will be familiar with this, but if you're not, the push is super, super important in all the work that we do in music industry, and especially with young people. It's really hard to get your foot in the door, and the push is very notorious for allowing young people to get their head start in the music industry. We run so many amazing masterclasses, as I've just mentioned, and my paper is getting very caught if anybody see this nice little claw I've got going on. I'll explain that in a minute. But the Push runs so many amazing masterclasses like the one we are about to get stuck into tonight as part of their mission to give every young person the opportunity to participate and thrive in their music scene. So tonight is our last in this year's masterclass series, unfortunately, but be sure to keep a keen eye on our Push socials to see if and when we're back next year. That is at the Push Inc. or on their website, thepush.com.au. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. I need to let you know where the bathrooms are, which I believe are just to my left, that way, through the curtain, just there. And this session is happening in person and virtually, so hello to everyone that we have online. I'm not sure where I'm looking for that, but I think there we go, over there. So thank you for joining us. This masterclass is first and foremost for you, so we want to know what you want to know. You can scan the QR code behind me. I think there was a QR code. There is not one behind me. Never mind. That way. Thank you so much. There we go. I'm a little bit disoriented up here. There's blinding lights. I finally understand what artists are all about when they're like, I can't see anything. But there's a QR code over there, or I believe you can log on to something. I will get that confirmed. But the QR code leads to the Slido, which is a platform where you can submit your questions anonymously. They'll go straight to my trusty phone here that I'm holding in my claw, and I will direct them towards our fabulous guests. So you'll see me on my phone a little bit throughout the night. It's not because I've gotten bored and I've decided to go for a little scroll. It is because I'll be viewing your lovely questions. So please send them through. But without further ado, it is time for me to invite our panelists to the stage. So we have some truly inspiring people with us tonight. I know you've probably seen who's on the bill, but just in the interest of giving them the introductions they deserve, please welcome first cab off the rank, I'm thrilled to welcome our first guest, Naarm based singer songwriter Angie McMahon. Angie's music is technically indie, but sonically triumphant. She has just released her incredible sophomore album, Light, Dark, Light Again, to massive critical and fan acclaim, and prior to this, she completed a sold out run of shows across our local cities. She's accumulated an incredible amount of local and international appeal over the years, and it only continues to rise. So please welcome Angie McMahon. Alrighty, I have the honor of introducing our next guest, Cara Williams. Cara is the founder of Slow Clap, a music company that, in short, manages the business side of music making and, in full, is nothing short of inspirational. Slow Clap currently features the likes of Gut Health and Private Function in their roster, just to name a few. Cara herself has done just about every job in the music industry that I've ever heard of, which includes, but is in no way limited to, things like artist manager, content producer, editor, marketer, and publicist. Please welcome Cara Williams. And next, it brings me great joy to welcome our final guest of the evening, Susie Yagmore. Susie is a heartfelt and home-hitting singer-songwriter whose originals were already doing numbers on TikTok, but it was a particular song dedicated to a high school bully that launched them into the stratosphere, garnering their almost 300,000 views at the time that I checked. 300,000? Yes, that's right. And a legion of brand new fans. Susie released their sophomore EP, I Hope You Can Hear Me Now, earlier this year before jumping on the road to tour said EP in just about any city you could think, any place actually, you could think of. They join us here tonight. Please welcome to the stage Susie. Hello, hello. Okay, so before I take a seat, I'm just going to remind you all that the QR code over here, if anybody wants to get up now and scan it, I don't know if people have already done that or not, but if you would like to come over and scan the QR code, that way you can ask questions throughout, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, let's get straight into the questions. Goodness me. Okay, so we're of course here tonight to discuss building your music community, and I want to start by asking Angie. You've developed quite a loyal and intimate fan base that has followed you through ups and downs, a bit of a lull in music creation, and even a change in management. How do you think that your craft and the music that you create attracted this kind of audience to you?
Thanks. That's so nice. It's nice to hear that. I think, wow, this light is bright. Like my brain's not working. Well, I think it's probably a combination of, you know, a few things. And if I was to simplify it, I would say ultimately like trying to practice my craft as much as possible so that I feel confident in it. And I think of the craft as like the songwriting side of things, you know, practicing my instruments, but also beyond that, I'm not always great at that, but beyond that, you know, like working on how I feel about myself so that I can present myself, you know, somewhat confidently. I think like confidence has an important role to play because you are presenting yourself to people all the time, like on stage or on the internet, and that's vulnerable and that's scary, and you are like, yeah, I think I have always tried, and I'm still trying, and I'm not perfect at it, but tried to do it as honestly as possible and just tried to be myself. Um, and and when the confidence isn't there, like, you know, try and engage with it somehow, like try and find it in my body. Because the only thing that has worked for me, and there's been all these things that haven't worked, but the thing that has consistently worked is to just try and do it as honestly as possible. And I think when you're relating to people like a fan base or even just, you know, anyone in your community, you want to just remember that we're all kind of the same. Like I don't really think of the fan base as a fan base even. Like I just think of it as other people who are just like me, and we all kind of have a lot of feelings, and we all want to like understand them, and I try and understand my feelings through songs and then connect to other people through that as well. So I think it's just like a respect for like each other and a respect for your own like well-being and your authentic self. That just felt like rambling.
Not
So
at
sorry.
all. No, that was such a beautiful answer, and I think very
Okay.
much speaks to the kind of, I guess, intimacy of the Andrew McMahon fandom. So, for lack of a better word, so that was beautiful. Thank you so much. I want to direct this next one towards Cara. Having managed musical artists with these really engaged communities like Angie and Susie, how do you support these communities in keeping the ball rolling with fan engagement from a more executive side?
Good question. I think one thing that is ultra important about engaging communities and community engagement and fan engagement is ultimately understanding who your audience is and who those communities consist of, right? Because the way once you understand who that audience consists of, and there might be different subsections of this community. Once you understand who they are, what makes them tick, you don't necessarily need to have all the answers, but just a bit of a general idea. It helps to be able to understand how best to communicate with them, right? So, sorry, pardon me. So, for example, Private Function have one of the most fanatical audiences ever. Like, they're fans, fanatics. And one thing that really, makes them tick is early access to things. It might be getting merch items first, getting early access to stores, early access to limited edition merch items that go really, really quickly. So from an executive point of view, it's about being able to reach those fans and those communities through ways that will make them feel like they're number one. They're the most loyal fans, they're the heroes, they get it. So it could be via, a mailing list. But also, I do that. The band don't necessarily do that. I pull together the newsletters and EDMs, but when I'm speaking like I'm a member of the band. Like, hey friends, lol, PF still on top because we love you. We're giving you first access to this store. And, in that kind of, for that particular example, it always results in sales because we know our audience, that's what makes them tick. With someone like Gut Health, on the other hand, they might have a different, like their audience, they might be more concerned about social matters or, social justice or whatnot. So when I'm speaking to them via newsletter, I'm certainly not using that kind of language. It's a little more subdued, and we're talking to them more about things that will resonate emotionally, because authenticity and emotion and storytelling builds connection between fans and the artist. And it's that reciprocal relationship. It's that reciprocal relationship that helps drive and further fuel, thank you so much, that fan engagement and loyalty. So if there is a way that you can continue to be your true authentic self, whatever that may be, that will help the audience and your fans and community identify with you and build a stronger bond. Is that okay?
Yeah,
I also
absolutely.
rambled then.
No, it was great. Thank you so much for that insight. This worked out really well. I promise you I did not plan to have everybody sitting this way, but it has just worked out this way. So Susie, similarly to Angie, you've accumulated quite a dedicated following, but through social media, mainly the likes of TikTok. On the outside looking in, it might seem as though a lot of that success can be left to chance and the all-powerful algorithm. We know how it works. But how do you utilize your social platform to keep and create community?
Great question. Wow. It's so funny. It's so funny. I think, like, for those who don't know, I posted a song on TikTok like 2 years ago, and it got a stupid amount of views. Like, I think it was like over 1 million, and it got like, my whole career started. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, that was like the moment that you, I guess, took off. Like, that song was like, everything for you. But it was really funny. Before that, it was like I was in lockdown and I was just really bloody bored. And I was like, I think I read somewhere, if you post more on TikTok, you're more likely to like get views. I was like, bet. Like, I was like, no worries, I'm not doing anything else. Like, So I challenged myself in like early 2020. I was like, oh, I'm just going to post to TikTok every day. And so before I'd even, posted that video that went kind of viral, I'd already posted like a stupid amount of videos just like in my bedroom. And I think I'd built like, 10,000 followers just by doing that. And then obviously the 300,000 views didn't hurt. But I think that early stage of kind of like posting every day, and I'd like make it a real mission to engage with like everyone who engaged with me. I was so excited. I was like staying up at night and like responding to every single comment. Like it didn't matter if there was like 300 comments. I'd be like, I'm going to respond to every single one. And so I was just like really hustling. I was like, this is it. I've decided. And I think I still kind of keep that mentality now. Obviously, like I'm touring a lot more and there's not really time to be staying up all night responding to every single comment. But I try and keep that like authenticity and just like posting silly things. Like I'll be like, haha, lol, everyone, I got dressed today. Be proud of me. And they're proud of me. And I think it's just like a nice, like authentic relationship that I've kind of built with my audience on there. And I don't really try and take it too seriously because I never did. So it would be weird if I did now.
Yeah, beautiful. I'm going to throw it back to Cara. Keeping with that more online community, but from a more PR side of things, your music community is at oftentimes within a broader scope than just the fans. How do artists best create and keep those industry connections and circles for themselves?
They get a manager that manages those relationships, or they network and build communities. And, we are obviously here to talk about communities. And again, I think it's really important to understand that there are more than one community within your ecosystem of being an artist or being a label owner or just being in the music community anyway, right? And one thing that I've always said, and I will just reiterate, and you may have heard me say it before, I think that the music industry is a bit of bullshit. I actually think that it's the music community. Like we have built it upon the music community. And I say that because literally every single person that I work with, every client that I've had, I have known somehow, and it just happens to be that we all do music things, or they might be a really great photographer, or they might be a really great video maker or whatever, right? So I think we really need to try and just abolish this idea of the music industry. It is all built on community, right? And there are different subsections of communities within those ecosystems. So some might be friendship, they might be other artists. They might be friends that you hang out with at a book club who just happen to be involved in the music industry too, or they could be the creatives that I kind of mentioned earlier on. The other side is that they could be people that have different levels within the music business. They could be your record owners, they could be your PR people, they could be your marketers. At the end of the day, they're all part of your community, right? Everyone, you kind of just need to treat people the same way. And I can tell you 100% that a lot of the deals that we broker are based on these friendships. It could literally be a phone call and be like, hey, I've got this new artist, you should check them out. Or someone sees that artist and then they're like, oh my God, they're amazing. And then they email their friend and they're like, yo, you need to check out this band. I'm hooking you up. All of that is all based on those relationships. So the big piece of advice that I can give is build those relationships early in your career or, within your journey. I spoke earlier on about how I was an ex-sinner a number of years ago, and I still work with many of the people that I worked or volunteered with at Sin now, and they're all in really big roles, But we met a million years ago. Makes me sound like an old woman. It wasn't a million years ago, I swear to God. But we met a really long time ago, and we still deal with each other all the time, and treat everybody well. There's no room for meanies in this space in our community. And if you treat people well and you act authentically, and you work within your community, then good things will happen, and you'll attract the right people that can help further what you're doing.
Absolutely. There's, I don't remember who it said. It might have been ex-sinner Bree Steele, who's very, very cool. Please look her up. But there is no burning bridges in the music industry. And it definitely speaks to what you're saying, that there's so much of this, it's not an industry, it is a community. And so many people that I've met and that I now know are through this really cool community that we have. And it is really about the people that you meet. And it's just about starting somewhere, which kind of brings me to one of the first guest questions for the night. To build on that, somebody's asked how you build those kind of community and network connections if you're shy. This is open to everyone. I know that that was mainly coming off the back of what Kara's just said, but
I mean, I can offer my own early experience in that, like, I've always been a very introverted person. I'm less like that now, but definitely when I was like 18, leaving school, entering the industry, right up until I was like probably 25, I was very unsure of how to like make connections with people, but I followed around my friends who were good at doing it. And I had one friend who was working at a bar, Some Velvet Morning. It's not there anymore, but it was a music venue. It's quite small. There was a really good community there, and that's where I met a lot of my it's where I met my band. It's where I met my first manager. It's where I met like a whole lot of people who are now, you know, integral parts of my like music world. Because my friend Maddie, who I had known from school, was really good at building community and really good at making friends. And I wasn't very good at it, but I went and like got a job at the bar and spent a lot of time there. And that was like a scary situation, just because I had never done it before. But also looking back on it, I'm like, oh, that was so normal. That's just another thing that happened in my life. And so I think taking things in small steps, you know, and also not letting the fear of whatever it is, like being, you know, opening up to other people, letting other people in, social anxiety, like those things are so valid, and they happen so deeply in our bodies. But you get one life, and you want to like figure out how to make that rich and full of experiences. So yeah, just keep an eye out for like little ways that you can start to do it, and I think you get better at it. Like I think shyness is a beautiful quality in a lot of ways, and also you don't want to let any of your qualities limit you from having these experiences. So yeah, maybe you guys have more to say to that as well, but just like absorbing.
I'm just going to, I mean, the Some Velvet Morning thing is interesting because a lot of my connections were made through Olpa. So, you know, I think, and not necessarily saying go hang out in bars and you'll make it, but again, it's about this, you know, building the community. And I totally agree with the notion that being shy is ultra special as well, because sometimes you don't want to listen to the loudest person in the room, you know? Yeah, exactly. You know, it's often about not necessarily being, you know, demanding attention. It's about being interesting. And often the loudest people are the least interesting, you know? So I think it's just really important to get out as much as you can. And again, we've both brought up examples of public situations, but you've got to remember there are online communities too. They're still huge, and they're often a really nice place for people that might have a little hesitation about putting themselves out there like that. They can still build community through those online spaces as well.
Oh yeah, yes. Hi, sorry. Absolutely. I was gonna say that like I don't think I'd really played any shows before I'd like started posting on TikTok, and it felt like this very safe thing because it was like I could kind of mentally detach from it, and it wasn't really going out to anyone's eyes. It was just like in my bedroom and no one else saw it, and there were just fake likes on the internet that weren't real people, which really threw me off when I like, you know, left my bedroom and got back out into the world. But I think like in my early days of like networking and meeting people and like becoming friends with people, it's gonna sound like a walking advertisement for the push, so bear with me. But I was like in Freezer when I was young and like would put on events with other young people. I grew up down in Mornington, so there wasn't much going on. And any chance I could, I would get up to like a push show or like a push summit or like a masterclass or like a panel like this. And I met some of like my closest friends and some like really instrumental people, just, you know, coming to these things. And like we're all young and shy. And like I think you just like attract the weirdness that you are, right? I don't know. I feel like you just give out the weirdness vibes, and then the other people with the same weirdness vibes come to you. Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel like, yeah, all of you have been right on the money, but especially like with what Susie was just saying, it is really important to, I guess it's hard. I mean, I personally probably, I don't know how many of you know me, but I'm not the most shy of people, and I'm very loud, definitely fit the loudest person in the room trope, but I can speak to a lot of the connections that I've made are through places like the Push, are through Freezer, through even just getting down to your local gigs as well. I know so many of my music connections through concert people. Yeah, it's so important to just have those like social connections first, because we're all friends foremost, and then the work just kind of comes along with it.
Hello. Yeah. So I can tell you. So a little while ago, I was working for Mushroom, and it was a great job on paper, but I hated it because it wasn't really my vibe, you know. And that's cool. It just wasn't my vibe. And then it got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm out, and I'm going to just start my own business. I'm just going to do it. I had nothing planned at all, but I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And then ended up I found an office, just found an office and was like, I'll manifest this career that, you know, I have nothing, no clients, no real plan. And then when I ended up just kind of putting myself out there in this office, being a complete fraud and basically just being like, yep, this is what I'm doing now, I started getting work. People contacted me, but they were always the people that I knew. They were all of them. They were all the people that I'd met at gigs. They were all the people whose shows that I'd gone and seen for a bunch of years. They were people that I'd hung out with at, you know, at different venues or whatever. And that's literally how it got started. I wouldn't be managing Private Function if I didn't know the band before. I would not, like, you know, Chris and I have known each other for a very long time, and it was since he moved to Melbourne. We used to hang out a lot. Gut health, really similar thing, you know. So I don't know. Every time I end up working with someone that isn't somehow connected or part of the circle, it always just doesn't work very well, to be honest. It just doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel like there's a meaningful connection there. So, yeah, just reiterating that building these foundations now, like just how important that is, because you have no idea where those little friendships will end up in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years' time.
Yeah, your communities are largely built on those, I guess. I guess less on a more like personal and like circles and organizational community level, and more on a kind of fan community level. This is directed towards both Angie and Susie, but Cara, chime in because I know that you have heaps of experience with your bands as well. But as much access as communities now have to people pursuing music and its industry, is there a pressure to give the people what they want? Are you really active and involved in your community, and does social media play a large part in this? I know that we've kind of touched on it already, but how do you set boundaries within those communities as well?
Do you want to?
Yeah. I think I've really struggled with this, especially in the last year or so, because I felt like, you know, when I'd started, I was talking to everyone who interacted with me and like really trying to like put myself out there, and I'd kind of gotten to a spot where I was out there doing the thing, and I'd feel like this sense of guilt if I wasn't like, you know, responding to these comments or like responding to these like DMs and messages and things, but I think eventually I kind of got to a point of like, if I'm gonna like sustain this creative thing that I love very much, like I kind of need to take that space and like time for myself to like actually do it. So I don't know, I guess the boundary I set was myself being like, I'm not going to open my DMs anymore. That's the boundary that I set.
Yeah, you have to protect your well-being, and that means that you can then give more back to people, I guess, as well. And so it's always just a balance. Like, I have always thought like that's a really smart move, what you're talking about, to like reply to people. That's, you know, that's how you build connection with people. But like you say, like it's not sustainable, and it's so important for you to have a sustainable practice across the board. And so like something that I'm doing at the moment is just being really conscious, like when I post something, for example, I think sometimes I'm encouraged to like ask questions, because like someone that I work with might say, you really want more like fan engagement on your algorithm. And my response to that in my body is like, please don't make me ask questions, because then I'm going to feel really bad when people answer them and then I don't have an answer to their answer, you know, like, and obviously that would depend on what the question was, but that's just a random example that came into my mind. Is like, there's certain things that I have to be really conscious of before I put them on the internet, because I can predict what the like result might be, and then how stressed that might make me. But that is just like the way that my social media is at the moment. But alternatively, like when people tag me in stories, I can just like flick through stories, and it's kind of like low effort engagement for me, but I can quickly like reply, I can quickly like it, and that still feels like giving energy back to people without feeling too flooded. I think the boundaries thing, it just reminds me of there's this thing that a therapist taught me once, which is the carrot theory, or some people call it the spoon theory. You guys know this, like the spoons?
It's all over TikTok.
Right. Oh yeah. Some people it's spoons, some people it's carrots. For me, it's carrots. And basically, the idea is like everyone has a bucket of carrots, and you can hand them out to people, and everyone that you come across, whether it's real life, on the internet, whatever, you can hand them a carrot. But you can only hand out as many carrots as you have in your bucket, and you shouldn't even hand them all out, because you have to maintain some for yourself, and that's your own like nourishment. And once you run out of carrots, like you're stuffed. Like you have to spend all this time growing new carrots, because you have no food left for yourself. And there are some people who you don't need to give a carrot to, or maybe you just give them half a carrot, or maybe you just look at your carrots and you're like, actually, I don't have that many carrots right now. I can only give you this tiny little bit of carrot. And there's just this constant it's like always changing. It's like sometimes you might actually have capacity to like fully engage with people online or in person, and sometimes you might not have that capacity at all, and you might be feeling really anxious, and you might be just completely burnt out and not have the option to do that, and that's fine. But it's like again my thing is always like, be kind to yourself, but it always does come back to that for me. It's like, how is this going to affect your well-being, whatever this interaction is, and go from there, and have the core intention to like be connecting with people. And to come back to what you were saying about like pressure, I think everyone is always going to want something from you. Everyone wants something for themselves, and sometimes those wants align. Like sometimes all I want is to connect with people, and that's great, and all the people that I'm working with, or all the person who's in front of me wants is to connect, and that's beautiful. Like the universe aligned us, we both want to connect, great. And then sometimes all I want is to hide in a hole, and all someone else wants is for me to connect with people. And then, you know, that if that pressure is there, then that's when like the boundaries become really important. And sometimes they're really hard to set, but ultimately they make things more sustainable. To come back to what I was saying.
No, absolutely. It's great insight, and it was a great analogy. I liked that. The
Carrots.
yeah.
You always got to be planting carrot seeds.
This is true.
Making carrot cake at some point when you just like, just take the cake, have the recipe, do it yourself.
Yes.
You know, yeah. So like,
get your own carrots.
yeah. Give me some carrots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's how you also like, if someone is giving you no carrots and they're just taking your carrots and giving you no carrots, like maybe I should give you a carrot.
It's a reciprocal carrot giving exchange. Like 100%.
Yeah.
And I will just we'll wind back a little bit just in terms of as an artist engaging with your audience maybe via newsletter or whatever, with this carrot mentality. I think that's a really great way, like a direct to fan engagement tool, like being able to send newsletters to your fans to let them know what's up and what you've been working on and whatever. That's cool. But you ultimately, the purpose of that is to be able to facilitate this relationship with this audience member directly. So I think it's really important as an artist to be able to give them something as well, because it's that whole what's in it for me factor. And it's if someone in your audience has handed over their email address, it's in your best interest to give them something in return, right? It could be a sneak preview to a song, it could be an update of what's going on, it could be a really delicious carrot,
Cake recipe.
Yeah, a carrot cake recipe, right? But it's a good way of being able to continue to engage with your community, but then at the same time put up those boundaries where it's like, well, I'm actually not an open door. You can't talk to me all the time. And with Private Function, I put an out-of-office reply on their messages. So whenever anyone DMs them, they get a message back being like, hey, we don't monitor this inbox a lot. If it's really important, you can email us. And they never do, because usually they're like, come to Brazil. And that's it.
It's always a come to Brazil.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And I guess we shouldn't be too surprised if there's an upcoming carrot cake recipe in the Slow Clap PR. So. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, on that, I've got another fan question. Oh my goodness. Crowd question come through for Cara. What might a band need to work with someone as awesome as you, and how do you choose bands to work with?
Thank you, whoever you may be. That was so nice. I don't know. I'm kind of at that point now where I am saying no to a lot of things purely because if it doesn't spark my passion, then I just don't feel like I'm doing the best job on it, And I think it's if you're an artist that might have music that you want to get out and you want to build those teams or whatever, I think it's about making sure that whoever you are working with is there because they care about what you're doing and they are passionate about what you're doing, not because they think they can get a quick buck or something like that, because it will never, ever, ever work out. And a little while ago, a fellow person in the music community said to me, if it's not a heck yes, it's a heck no. And I think that we need to really follow our intuition a whole bunch more when it comes to this kind of stuff and the kind of work that we pick up. Because if we just take things on just for funsies or just because we think that would be the right thing to do or it might open another door, 9 times out of 10, you'll regret it. Is that a good answer? I don't know. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, just do it in a practical sense. Just reach out to that person, or maybe you might meet them, or through those connections or whatever. Because there's been heaps of times where people have hit me up and they've been like, hey, like I don't know, something's like I've been quite engaged by their email, and then I'll listen to their music and go, oh, it's really good. Oh, I don't want to take anything else on, but I really love this. And then I do, and it ends up being great. But if you don't put yourself out there, you'll never know, right?
And the rejection is hard. Like if you were to reach out to someone like her and then you were too busy and unfortunately can't probably work for every person who emails you. But that is also maybe just a really important part of the process. Like rejection, we all hate it, but it thickens your skin a bit, and it's better to ask and to try and understand that it might not be a no because of your art, and that doesn't mean that you're unworthy or your art isn't valuable and that you should stop there. Obviously, just wanted to encourage, reach out to the people that you are excited to talk to, even if it just means you're practicing making yourself vulnerable, writing emails, because it's only going to add value to your skill set, no matter what happens.
Yeah, very much falls back into that whole. It's kind of said a lot, I guess, around music communities and that. But if you haven't already heard it, but it's kind of the learning how to say no thing. I guess it's universally applicable, but especially within creative industries, that whole, again, learning when to stop giving out carrots. To come back to that analogy, somebody's probably just tuned in and is like, what's going on with the carrots, guys? But carrots are the theme of the night, apparently. I'd also like to redirect everyone, if you haven't already and would like to submit a question, you're more than willing to do so. I have got a link now. It is thepush.au/MIMSLIDO if you would like to submit a question. That is thepush.au/MIMSLIDO. So I'll expect your questions with open arms.
May I just interject really quickly just to talk about the power of saying no? Because I think
Yes,
this
go
is
for
something that's really important. And again, there's a lot of topics that we're diving into here, and one of them is burnout, and and that is so real. And overworking and just really hustling because you think that that's what's going to get you further. And of course, hard work does get you further, but there is such a tremendous amount of power in saying no to things that don't serve you at that particular time. And for so many reasons, not necessarily just based on mental health and that kind of thing and following your gut, but also in terms of you as a creative person and building a profile on yourself, right? So if you're an artist and you're constantly getting hit up by other artists, to play with them or support them or whatever, and you're like, man, this does not align, don't just take the gig because you think more gigs are going to be better. Like, if it's not right, it's not right. And this is one thing. So gut health are incredibly in demand. Everyone wants gut health. Everyone. And right at the very start, I was saying to them, you need to look at this stuff like you're dating. Imagine it's like a date and you're really hot. Like, you're super hot and everyone just wants to take you on a date. And some people will offer you a fancier date and more money and fancier clothes or, better restaurant. They might even offer you a hotel after. Some might just be like, there's a lot of power in being able to say no, only date the people that you want to date, and I think that has certainly served their purpose too, and it meant that they've been able to just keep a level head about things and not get too overwhelmed with playing so many shows and all that kind of stuff.
So real. So real. I just wanted to touch on that because I kind of feel like after we got out of lockdown, I was in this weird position of everyone wanted me to play a show and I didn't have a team or a manager or a booking agent or anyone. I was just kind of like, wow, people want me to play shows. That's so cool. And so I think we counted them. We've done 105 shows since we came out of lockdown.
Whoa.
Which is a really silly amount. That's too many. But I think, I was in that mentality of I just want to go and play as many shows as possible. And how could this be a bad thing? I'm in front of people and that's awesome. And then I think it took losing thousands of dollars and sleeping on floors and, kind of doing all of that to realize sometimes it's just not the move. And I think I got to a position as well of complete burnout and almost hatred and resentment for the job. So I think, being picky about who you date is a good thing to do.
Another great analogy, might I say. It was, yeah.
Are you saying you ran out of carrots?
I ran out of all my carrots. I ate them all. Oh no, I gave them away.
Gave them away.
I didn't eat any of them. It was so sad. But I got so many growing, don't you worry.
Yeah.
Whole carrot field.
That's what it's about.
Yeah, 100%. Because when you are not giving out the carrots and you're just chilling for a bit and just letting it all happen, you have more of an opportunity to plant those seeds and, harvest your garden and grow more and, and you just build up that strength. You've got that ability to bounce back because I think legitimately burnout is such a huge, huge deal in music. And, there's a lot of people in the room right now. Don't let yourself get to the point where you're just completely tired and just doing things because, don't push yourself too hard because you won't feel good afterwards.
Yeah. I guess kind of on that, we've had somebody come through and ask for tips on keeping up consistency and motivation with posting content and creating music specifically, but I guess it also applies a bit more broadly just in avoiding burnout.
For me, I'm just going to speak first to the posting content. I post all my content myself. Other people have offered to do it for me, but personally, I find for my brand, it just feels more genuine. But the flip side of that, is that I don't really like. Sometimes I really just don't feel like doing it. And the rule that I have for myself, it is important to be consistent. So the rule that I have is I'll only press post if it feels right in my body. And if it doesn't feel right in my body, I will try and find the time to come back and post the thing, especially if it's something that I know is important. Like, I'm not just going to try and like avoid it fully and not do it ever. But it's important to like try and keep that relationship with posting like as healthy and positive as possible. And so I just try not to do it if it feels bad. And if the caption feels like not true, or it feels inauthentic in some way, then I rewrite it and I have to rethink it, and maybe it comes at a different time. But that's been a rule that I've had since kind of like the first song that I put out. I just realized that I wasn't going to be able to, be present online unless like over time consistently, unless I made it a positive thing for myself. And some days or some minutes it doesn't feel right, and so I won't click post. So yeah, whatever the rule is, like I feel like it is good to kind of like find the rule that works for you and stick to it. That would be my one about posting.
Yeah. No, I totally
True.
agree. So true. Yeah, I think back in the day when I was like a bit obsessed, I would like sit down in my room and I would pick out 5 outfits and I would film a month's worth of TikToks so that I could just not have to do it for a month, and it was just like ready to post. But now I'm like, I don't really care. Like, I'm just like, I'm the same in the way of like, if it feels good, I'll post it, which is like, it took me a really long time to get there from like that constant, engagement and posting on TikTok. But I think it's cool. Like TikTok has kind of made the internet more authentic in a way. Like, I feel like people aren't really as interested in like the super polished, content that like takes a long time to make and like is like, super markety and marketable is the word. Like, you literally can just like sit in your backyard in the sunshine and like lip sync to your song if you want, and that's content. And if that's something you feel like doing, that's cool. Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that.
I agree with what you're saying, and I think the reason why is because what you are engaging in is a process of audience identification, and audiences aren't necessarily identifying with the super slick, pretty, overdone kind of video content, unless it's part of, like an episodic content series or something along those lines. It's usually very expensive. So I think that there is a lot of power in being able to just take a step back and go, okay, well, what am I presenting? How am I presenting myself? Is it true? Is it meaningful? And is it right for right now? And if it's not, don't post it. The other thing I will flag, and again, I'm not an artist, so I don't post, but I do moderate, and I think a big part of burnout isn't necessarily keeping up with posting for the algorithm. It's also being able to be resilient enough to deal with the awful stuff that might come back to you, right? And that's not necessarily always going to happen. But, like all this week, I've been moderating Private Functions account because of the nasty vitriolic comments, hateful comments that have just been coming through because they posted a video and they've got a trans woman in their band, and the awful stuff that we've just been deleting. It's just it's revolting. So I think that just keep, I'm tired. having to deal with that, and that's not even me, you know. So I think that you've got to, if you're going to be putting yourself out there, you've got to remember that burnout can come in two ways. It's not necessarily about the effort, but it's, I mean, there's that side of it, but it's also about being able to maintain your own mental health with what might come back.
Not to, I guess, dwell on it too much, but I did have somebody come through and ask along the lines of what you've just been discussing, dealing with comments that make you feel uncomfortable, but you feel as though you should respond or risk losing a fan, both in person and online, in relation to a lot of what we kind of deal with as, I guess, women and non-binary people as well. A lot of sexism, a lot of, that kind of thing. How do we deal with that?
My first thought is like some things don't necessarily warrant a response. If you're going to lose a fan and they're nasty or they're not, you know, they don't have your best interest at heart. Can we swear? Don't know. Stuff them. And if I think I've also found I've had really helpful conversations for my own growth with people who have sent, you know, like a private message or a comment where I felt like there was an opportunity to learn and it aligned with my values. And so I think if you're sure on what your values are, which is really important for everything across the board, I think that we're talking about as well, because that's how you know what kind of people, you know, you want to be in your audience. Then maybe you engage in a conversation with them, and like that's like beautiful things to learn from people. But yeah, if they're being horrible, then like you say, sometimes it's just really important for your health to delete and like block. I mean, I didn't used to block people. I used to be, it's like a people pleasing thing. I used to be really afraid of blocking people. I will block them so fast now. And not, it's not like censorship. It's like if someone's just harassing you and abusing you, which people do on the internet, shockingly, then yeah, block them. Onwards and upwards.
Again, we're talking about communities, and people on the internet, even strangers on the internet, are still part of an online community. And if you were hanging out at a pub, or I gotta stop talking about pubs, but if we were hanging out somewhere in a park having a picnic, and then some random came up and just started hurling abuse at them, what would you do?
Come sit with us.
Hang out here, have some of my pizza. Like, you know.
Yeah, but if they came and said like, hey, I just overheard you say something that made me uncomfortable and I wanted to, you know, discuss that with you, like that feels like a more a growth-ready conversation.
100%. So it's about being, you know, open to that, but also being adult about it. But, I mean, ultimately, how much of that can you deal with in the real world? And at the end of the day, this is the real world, because you're still dealing with these kind of people. Or maybe they're bots. I don't know. They're probably bots.
There are so many bots now. It's awful.
Look up the dead internet theory. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, but you should really look it up. It's very interesting. It's basically just saying that there are more bots online than there are people, and a lot of the comments that, you know, that are coming through are...
I believe it.
Yeah, I believe it too. Yeah.
Yeah. I have important things to share, and
We
I trust
are
my
bots.
thoughts. We are wow, hard eye emoji. Yeah.
Yes. No, that is absolutely fair enough. I guess kind of to that point, this is again directed at our artists, but again, Cara, chime in. It is actually applicable to all of you, because you are all so integral in running your own music communities. What do you all want your individual music communities to say about you? Do you want the people within it to reflect your values? Is it a love of music? Is it a family? How do you define that community?
I think I have always wanted to kind of create a crowd environment, I guess in a live setting anyway, like a crowd environment that is somewhere that I would feel safe and I would feel comfortable being a part of. I feel like the first concert I went to when I was 18 was a surf rock band. I won't name them. But I
There's
don't
quite
think
a few. You'll be
yeah.
fine.
Yeah. I remember it was at the Croxton, and I have never felt that uncomfortable and unsafe in my entire life. And like, I just remember from that moment onwards, I was like, I never want to be a part of like creating an environment like this, and I never want to make anyone feel the way that I'm feeling in this room because it's awful. And I think like just, you know, having the opportunity to support a lot of artists in the last couple of years has really kind of like given me a good insight into like who's building those communities and who's like making a real impact on how like crowds are and not necessarily like encouraging that kind of behavior. And so I think it's, you know, if you have that mindset, I feel like people will probably be drawn to you. Like if I go on stage and I'm like, hey, everyone be nice to each other, the people that aren't nice to each other probably won't come to my shows. So like, you know, I've been really lucky. I feel like I've been able to kind of like build that community. And like we just played a show a couple of weeks ago, like a headline show, and the supports were like, we've never had anyone like listen so attentively and like be so, you know, polite, and everyone showed up from like the first band that played, and it was just such a lovely, wholesome experience. And yeah, I think the whole point is just, I just want people to feel safe and not under threat. Yeah.
Great standard.
Thanks. It should be the basic standard.
Baseline, yeah.
be,
But
yeah.
it's such a good point. Like, I think I've had that experience too, and probably a lot of us have. You've gone to a gig which is not a place that you want to be. You don't feel good, and then when you get the opportunity to be on stage, yeah, you do become a community leader, at least for that moment in time, and you get to choose. You get to set an intention. And I didn't used to be so good at setting the intention because I was maybe much more nervous. But I think, like you said, like lockdown, like post-lockdown gigs was like it was another thing. And I think I had a lot of time to think about what it is to be in a room full of people and be on a stage and have, you know, like have this moment in time. And people weren't gathered together for such a long time. And so I was really thinking about like, oh, if we could all be in a room together again, like what would that ideally feel like? And so it's just become more and more something that I think about a lot. And now when I get on stage, I think my main focus, because you can't always control it, you know, you might be at a festival or like you say, like supporting a band who doesn't necessarily have like a super respectful crowd for whatever reason. And I think all you can do is like model what your values are and what your ideal vibe is, and then like people understand that that's the standard that you're setting. You're in a position of power, and you can give off, you know, the energy that you have control over, and people will hopefully follow. And it's kind of fun to experiment with. Like I started doing this thing at gigs where like I take a breath at the beginning, and I felt really awkward doing it at first, and now I do it every time I have a show. Like we get on stage, welcome to country, and everyone's going to take a breath together if you want, the whole audience, before we start. And it just sets the vibe of like something like this. And the first time that I did it, my parents were at the gig, and my dad was like, that's not very rock and roll. And it was so like, what are you doing? And I was like, what are you doing? This is the vibe now. Yeah. I'm just like, I must breathe. And it's actually been really nice. I think it's hard sometimes to be in a crowd, and you've got to like remember that and remind people to drink water and look after each other. And then they do, because there's somebody holding them accountable for that up on the stage. And so you just got to model it for people, I think, ideally. Yeah. And then hopefully you weed out the bad ones, like you said.
There's always going to be bad ones. They always come, always. And sometimes, you know, they're not necessarily invited, but they might just turn up. And it is about modelling and just, you know, strip it back a little bit. But like if you're piecing together a lineup, diversity is important. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I am so goddamn sick of seeing lineups that are just all male white dudes. And then we wonder why, you know, we've got gendered violence, we've got, you know, we have to go to shows where we feel incredibly uncomfortable as women or, you know, or as whatever. It's, I think that's really important. And, you know, and I'm obviously in this headspace because I've just been dealing with supports all week and just trying to build a tour and build out, you know, supports that will help to build the community and crowd that we want, that is safe, that is, you know, and also just setting an expectation that this is what it should be, you know. I think even just stripping it back to just those simple points without even stepping onto the stage is a really great way to be able to build those kind of communities and safe spaces.
Yeah, and it's so important because it does make it. I mean, it makes people want to keep coming back as well. It makes a positive experience for people that they remember. And I was just thinking of an anecdote, which is the first time I saw Camp Cope play, and Georgia Mack was like screaming in the best way, like women to the front and everyone else like back off, or you know, it was actually just men to the back, you know, basically like cis men at the back. And I'd never seen anyone do that before. This was years ago, and I was like, what is happening? And then I realized it was amazing, and I became a Camp Cope fan. I'd never seen them before, and years later, like last year or something, I was at their show and at the Forum. And when it was over, I was standing in the crowd and the room was clearing, and this woman in a wheelchair came up to me, and she was so beautiful. I've met her twice now at 2 Camp Cope gigs, and she said, you know, like, hey, love your music, blah, blah, blah. And then she was telling me about her experience with Camp Cope shows, and she said, I mean, this woman was like quite disabled. She couldn't, I don't think she had full use of both of her hands, and her like words were difficult to understand. And she said, this is the first time I've ever booked a ticket for myself to go to a show and gone by myself. And I knew that I could do it because it was a Camp Cope show. And I just, I was just like, that's amazing. And I like called the band and I was just like, you guys create the best vibe. Like, this is such an incredible promise that you make to people, and they know that they can come and feel safe. And that's just like so powerful to me. They're one of my favorite bands, and I've seen them do that for so many different types of people. And yeah, it has such a great ripple effect. Like, it makes people feel brave and strong when you model good values. And Camp Cope piss off a lot of people. Like, a lot of people don't like them because they're loud. They don't care, and it's like, it's life-changing for some people. So yeah,
But they've built community, right? And they've
a
built
very strong one.
a very, very strong one, and an incredibly loyal one, because they stand by their values. And this is something that, as fans, you know, we often it's not necessarily about the music. Like, yes, of course, we love music. That's why we're all here. But it extends beyond that. And, you know, we talk about emotional connection and bridging these, you know, these gaps through emotionally driven material, whether that's music, but also like, you know, values and that kind of stuff. And what else are the building blocks of good communities? Like, you wouldn't be hanging out with people that are, you know, bigots or racist or sexist, whatever. And if they do come into your community or whatever, you might be questioning why that is. And I feel like as artists, you're right, it's about modelling this kind of behaviour and building and facilitating the growth of those kind of communities where shared values is something that is underpinning the entire operation. And then the music as well.
There's such good points to make too, and I feel as though, much to your credit, both you, Angie, and Susie as artists, and also Kari yourself with your artists, but a lot of your reputations precede you. If I hadn't seen Susie, I would know that your shows are very inviting and always a fun space to be in. And Angie, I haven't seen any of your solo shows live. A lot of them have been sold out. But I know that it's such a welcoming space and it's such an intimate kind of show and feeling. And a lot of that is the same of Gut Health and Private Function, namely, and just of also the way that you present yourself. So I do thank you all for that kind of example that you are all setting. And that has also been the feedback that people have sent through as well, because I didn't realize you can send feedback through, not just questions. People have been sending in saying that they do wish artists would give the advice that you guys are providing. So we do really thank you for that. I'd also like to just draw everybody's attention to the fact that while I have your attention, I guess, pizza is on the way. And we will have an upcoming performance, so stay tuned. But we are in the thick of the questions. And as I'm reading some out, do we have any tips amongst the panel to help stop procrastinating due to fear of criticism?
No.
That's fair. That's a fair...
Not me.
One day I just said I don't care anymore. So you could just say that. Like, no one's stopping you. Whoever you are, you can just say you don't care anymore and that nothing matters. And well, not in like a bad way, but like in a, you know, like everything matters. But in like a it's chill way. Like, no.
100%. As I said earlier, there's a lot of power in saying no. There's also a lot of power in going, I don't give a damn what you think. And I am just going to continue operating the way that I am going to continue operating, that is true to me. And I'm just going to keep on following my heart, because when I do that, I feel most at peace and I feel most success.
I think also that people are quite coming around to the idea that artists are their own people and aren't locked into 360 deals and the like anymore, and partially is due to the fact that we have such an intimate view of you all through social media and that kind of thing, but we understand that you're people and the demands that are set of you are different, and you're allowed to be human and have bad days and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's really important to see those moments, I think, as much as we have just talked about setting that boundary and allowing people to give you space. But yeah, I'd also like to ask you, I know Angie touched on it just quickly before with your anecdote about Camp Cope, but what was the moment that made you all realise that it was about more than just the music, and that you were a part of a greater community?
The first time I went to a Camp Cope show.
That's so nice.
Was it anything in particular or just the general vibe?
I think like a complete contrast to my horror surf rock experience was going into a Camp Cope show and feeling, I was almost kind of like unsure when I was there, because I was like, surely this isn't, it can't just be a room full of lovely people who are here to like support each other and listen to, you know, the music on stage and just like be kind. I was like, that doesn't happen. But then I was like, oh, it's happened, and that's what this is. Yeah, I think that was it. I was just kind of like, you know, obviously like I was like really young when Camp Cope were playing, was it Laneway when they did the phone number, and, you know, have done so much for like the live music scene. I was a child, so I wasn't involved, but so I knew about all of this, but like kind of, you know, turning 18 and going to the shows and realizing that it's like you can have a really, really successful career by staying true to like who you are and your values and your morals. That was just like mind-blowing to me. Yeah.
That's so nice. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a moment. I don't know if there's just one, but I mean, like, the first time I was selling merch, that felt like it's felt like such a tangible exchange with people. Like it was like a show at Howler. I didn't have any like release or anything to sell yet, but I'd like frantically like drawn this t-shirt design and got that printed, and then, you know, like being able to I guess like share that with people was really exciting. And it suddenly, yeah, it felt like being in a room of people who were like really on your side. But another like completely separate one is when I was working at the music venue that I was working at, a lot of the staff and a lot of the community were musicians as well, and they ran these tribute nights. Like they did a Janis Joplin one, and there was another one I can't remember, but like a Fleetwood Mac one or something. But it was just like everyone get up and sing a song, and we're all gonna play instruments, and it was very like collaborative. And it had nothing to do with like me and my serious music project. It was more just like, and there's a few moments like that over the years, which is like, I think it's just so important. Like I think there's this really powerful community feeling when it becomes not about you and you're not centering your own like goals and vision, and those things are obviously important, but the beauty of community is it's about everyone. It's an ecosystem, and there's so much joy there and like relief and release when you just like with your friends like playing music or whatever it is. Like you're in the park running around together, and like you might be in a band together, but you're not actually talking about music, and you're just like, hang on, we're just sharing each other's company, and we're just doing something fun. I think those moments are like just as important. Yeah.
I can't remember a specific moment, but I have an anecdote from just recently that I can share. I recently went overseas for work. I went to a music festival / conference in Germany. And then after that, I was like, you know what? I'm overseas. I'm going to go to Ghana Festival, which you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but there's a punk rock festival in Memphis called Ghana Festival. And I'm like, I'm going to go there. It's still work, right? It's work. I work in music. It's work. And it was just so interesting to feel like, at this conference, where everyone was there for music, but it was like, what do? You have the elevator pitch. You're telling them what you do, what you're doing in Australia, who you work with, what you do, blah, blah, blah. And then seeing bands that, some were good, cool. But then going over to this festival and just being like, man, I feel so at home right now. And I'm still surrounded by music. I'm surrounded by community. I don't know any of these people. I'm traveling solo right now, but I feel right at home. And not one person's asked me like what I do. It's great. Like I'm just instantly just like part of this community, and where the only thing that we're really talking about is music and great releases and what we really love at the moment and what's great at home, and and what bands are playing and that kind of stuff. And that made me go, yeah, like I'm here for work, I am, but this is definitely what community is all about, feeling right at home and not necessarily having to, I don't know, project who you are in order to fit in. It's just about being.
Yeah, it's such an interesting like crossover between like friendships and networking, isn't it? Like networking is important. It's part of the job for any role in the industry, but you really have to make time for like just light, loving friends as well, and remember that like people aren't steps on a ladder. Like everyone's valuable and everyone has something to offer, and if they just offer you like fun and joy, or some random life lesson, like that is still going to serve you. You don't have to put all your energy into like finding the person in the room who's like the festival booker and like making like find, like Susie said before, find the person whose weirdness matches your weirdness, and just know that something unknown will open up from that, and you don't need to know what it is, but the lightness is so important, isn't it?
There were plenty of carrots at that festival.
Yum.
Yeah.
Bring it all back. No, I think those moments are super important. They kind of remind you of why you're doing what you're doing and bring you back into that community. I know that's happened for me several times as somebody very low in my area of like the industry, but still very much like you feel like a lot of things that you're going to are work related, or a lot about what networking you're going to be doing there. And sometimes you do need to just go and remind yourself why you do what you do, because that's how you got here.
You love music. That's why we're all here. Like, there's something that makes us tick. It's because we love music and we love being involved in it. And the rest of it's just all part of the game,
Yeah, absolutely. I guess in the spirit of kind of wrapping things up, I would like to ask you all what, if any, final piece of advice you could give on building your own music community. What would that be?
I think mine would be kind. I think we've covered that, but and find kind people. And don't worry about being cool. Maybe I think we come up against that a lot in this industry, especially in this country. Like you can quite quickly feel shame if you think that you're trying too hard, or you look like you're trying too hard, or you're not on trend, or you're not hanging out with the cool people. It's just nonsense, and it's not where like the happiness is. I think the happiness is in finding your unique offering and trusting it, and finding like good people and trusting them, and whatever cool is, they're usually not the people that I want to be around. But yeah, community is like it's so important for it to be diverse, like you were saying, and yeah, you don't need to know who it is or let it be just one thing. Like I think have lots of communities and do it in little steps all throughout your career, knowing that it's probably the most important thing.
I think kindness is really important, but I also think it's really important to surround yourself with the kind of people that you might want to invite to a party that you're throwing. You know, don't just hang out with people because they're cool or because they're, you know, a stepping stone. If they're jerks, you don't want to be around them, and you certainly don't want to have them as part of your community. Just build a community of like-minded people that have the same kind of values and intent, and I think the rest will fall into place. The only other thing I'll say is kindness is obviously extremely important, and you know we've said that a lot. And ultimately, everyone in this room are nice people, right? I think it's really important to understand the difference between being a kind person and being a pushover, right? Don't allow yourself to be exploited, taken advantage of, whatever. You know, under the guise of kindness or under the guise of working hard or whatnot, because people will look for that, especially with young people in the industry. People would absolutely look for that and look to use your kindness for their own advantage. So just make sure that you are not a pushover in this space. But the rest will all fall into place. Sure. Look, I think it's just doing things that might be outside of your comfort zone, because someone that might be in a position of power is, you know, maybe encourage you to do something. Maybe it's doing a lot of work for free, you know, with that whole exchange of, you know, building your profile, unpaid internships. Sometimes they're beneficial if there's something in it for you specifically. There are a few examples there. But yeah, I think that we are so motivated by this innate desire to grow and succeed and be our best that sometimes we'll do things that other people are just, you know, they're just using you for their own gain.
I just want to add to that and say, like, I've found myself in situations where even if the people are good people, I might be agreeing with them or going with their flow, you know, for a certain amount of time or a long time, even though it didn't feel good in my body, and like kind of denying what my body was saying for the sake of, you know, career growth or whatever. And that I realized that that's just very like unboundaried living, which didn't serve me or my career ultimately. But it felt like it would at the time, and it's just like a fear of upsetting people and a fear of, conflict and whatever. I think that's been part of my journey. But when I was working through that, I found this really great Brene Brown quote, which is, it's about the most compassionate people. She did all this data research about people who are compassionate in society, and the most compassionate people, like monks or whatever, whoever they were, across the board, there was one factor that they had in common, and it was that they all had really strong boundaries. They're all really firm with their boundaries, and that allows you to actually be more compassionate. So if you're worried about like not being nice enough or kind enough to people, just know that like compassion is so important, but it also starts with yourself, and saying no or setting a boundary doesn't make you unkind. And if someone is suggesting that it does, that's just because it doesn't serve their purpose. But yeah, ultimately, like if you're being like hardcore about a boundary, or you're not being a pushover, that doesn't make you a bad person, no matter how much your body says like it's uncomfortable. Because I was just thinking, like with comfort zone, like sometimes it is the least comfortable thing to set the boundary, but it might be the most important thing as well. Yeah.
Yes. Advice for building your community. Slay, be yourself. Your community will find you if you are just authentically yourself. Don't shy away from that. Yeah, even if you're looking at the cool kids and they are a certain way, you don't have to look like them. You can look different. I don't know if that. Yeah, okay, slay. You all rule. You'll be great.
That's great.
Absolutely. We're a few minutes away with the pizza still, so I'm gonna continue to ask some questions. But this is a really cool one because I feel like this speaks to a lot of what we do in music. But someone's asked they've said rather, that they'd like to start working or volunteering. And this was going out to Cara specifically, but again, chime in. On how to practically get going in writing, artist management, or mentoring, and all that comes with it.
I don't know, maybe, okay. When I was starting out, I had literally no fear in reaching out to people to ask for advice. I did it all the time. As a matter of fact, when I first started my work in the industry, I was an editor. And I did that because this is so naff, please don't judge me. But it's hilarious because, we're all sharing here. But I snuck backstage at Big Day Out and interviewed Andrew Stockdale from Wolfmother, who had just had an enormous amount of hits in the Triple J Hottest 100 of that particular year. And I know, it was, but
It was
to
a
be
Nardwuar
fair,
moment.
he was so kind. He was very kind. He knew. Who is this random girl with a red face being like, can I interview you? Like with my phone. And he gave me the time of day. And then after that, I wrote a terrible story, like a terrible article, and then sent it to the then music editor of like the Herald Sun or something. And I had no idea who this dude was. And then he was kind enough to come back and give me advice on how to write, and was like, if it was my article, I would fix this and this and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wow, thank you so much. And he's like, well, remember me one day when, and I'm like, I still do. And I think about this kind of stuff often when people come to me and ask me for advice. Sometimes I'm willing to share those carrots. I don't want to share all my carrots because I like carrots a lot. But, I do like, I think that there's a lot of communities thrive and survive when we share knowledge with one another. I think that's really, really important. So for that person who might be interested in finding a mentor, finding, that kind of stuff, just ask the question because, what's the worst that can happen? Someone says no and then you find someone else,
was just going to add to that. The best music managers that I know, I think probably similar to what you're saying, have worked a whole lot of jobs across the industry, because the thing about a manager is like you kind of want to be across everything at least a little bit. And so if you know a little bit about sound, then it's going to be much easier for you to communicate with the artists, like mixing engineer. And if you know a little bit about whatever other stuff, it all comes in handy. Like if you've worked in events a little bit, you know, I think, and I feel the same as an artist. Like I worked in a bit of live sound at the venue that I was working at, and that helped me so much later on. And I did the events booking there for a little bit, and that helped me so much with just knowledge about the industry. Like a manager's role is to basically know everything. And so I'm sure that's not the best description of a manager's role, but the way that I see it, you can't hurt yourself by working, you know, in any spot that might have you and feels like the universe is kind of sending you there. Try it out for a little while and see if you learn something. You meet people. You might find a manager who is desperately overworked and needs an assistant, and you get an inside look that way. But yeah, I think like any job in the industry is going to help you in some way, hopefully.
I agree.
I don't have a manager. But I've worked a lot of jobs, so I totally agree. Knowing
You're your own manager.
Yeah,
I was going to say, speaking to that, how is that kind of directly interacting with community as doubling up as, or double agent as an artist and also a manager? How is that kind of interaction like?
It is fine. It does mean that I have to read everything all the time, so I know how everyone feels about me at all times, which is fine. I think it's cool though. I think it's cool. Like it's nice to be across everything, and I find a immense sense of pride in like knowing that, you know, I'm capable and can do the thing that I need to do. Business. I love it. But also at the end of the day, I'm just a silly little girl. I'm playing guitar. You know, I'm just having a fun time. Like, what even is the music business? I'm just writing songs. So
Community.
it's community.
Community.
Exactly. But yeah, it's been great so far. I'm having a great time. Yeah. I'm not stressed.
That's good to hear. No, it's great. I think also it's again going to sound like a little bit of an ad, but to the kind of point of volunteering or getting your start in work, places like the Push, so integral in connections, in knowing people, in getting you set up, especially as a young person. Places like Sin, where I volunteer, amazing for that kind of thing. Just any place that is going to get you kind of a leg up. And more often than not, people are so willing to share knowledge, as Cara has said. The amount of times I think I've cold calling, but emailing people, and they've gotten back to me and have been like, yeah, absolutely, willing to help out with that, is almost always. So yeah, I think that's the best thing that you can do. That's my personal.
Yeah, don't have fear. I think a lot of people are really keen to just share share the knowledge that they have. But also, sometimes they just want to feel good about themselves for one day. Sometimes, you know, they are completely overworked and there's a lot of monotony in their day job and they're stressed as all heck. And then they get an email from someone that's like, hey, can I just ask you a quick question about this? And it's completely at random and you're like, yeah, I will answer that question because it will help you.
The thing I can do.
Yeah, exactly. And then suddenly you're like, oh, I feel really good now. Like now suddenly the sun's shining a little bit brighter, and it's because I did something for someone else and I wasn't completely, you know, caught up in my own bullshit, which we always do. So yeah, just reach out to them.
And also we're in Melbourne, like just hearing like the Push and Sin, like there's not a lot of cities that have that many like community spaces where you can go and, or, you know, all the great music venues. Like we are actually really lucky to have these like beds of community that you can try and get involved in. Like it's a really good spot to be, I think, to take advantage of it. And like, yeah, I went to the Push in the beginning, and I know so many other people who did. Like it's just kind of like that was the thing to do. Just like, where can we be? Like,
Yeah,
how many communities can we be part of?
I was in the push, but also SEN. Like SEN, if you're
Yeah.
not involved in SEN, you need to. Like if we're talking about building communities, just volunteer. And just a final thought on, you know, putting yourself out there and not being exploited. It's okay to volunteer if there's something in it for you and you feel totally driven and passionate about it. That's totally fine. And there's going to be opportunities where you can do that. And I highly suggest, obviously, you know about the push, but look at SEN and look at other opportunities that you have as well, because they're where you will start building these communities and the building blocks to your future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely putting yourself out there, not giving away too many carrots, but ultimately giving back to your community, because that's what supports you. It's very self-sufficient and everybody loves each other and it's great. And on that, I believe I can hear some rustling of pizza boxes. So it's my sign to wrap up. But thank you all so, so much for joining us and sharing your knowledge. Do you want to plug yourselves quickly if people want to find you? Plug. Oh, you can also clap, but plug yourselves if you would like to.
My name's Susie, S-U-Z-I. Susie sang this, SUZISANGTHIS. Thank you.
I run a company called Slow Clap, so like slowclap.com.au. That's thank you. Thanks. So yes, just look for that online. Thank you.
That's such a great name. My name's Angie McMahon, and also on the internet.
I love that we did just talk so much about setting boundaries and not being hyper like online, and then I've just asked you all to plug yourselves. But
Follow me.
yeah, but the people need to know and where to stay up to date, even if it's not always. But thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom. And to everyone in the audience, go and grab some pizza and stick around for an excellent performance from Mika James that I'm also very excited to see. I will be front and center. So yeah, thank you all so much for being so attentive and for your great questions. And yeah, enjoy some pizza and stick around for a performance.
Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, great, thank you. All right. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm alone, no matter how many people I'm around. What is love if not a home? Oh, I am alone, no matter how many people I'm around. I can't hear any of her yet.
Hello? Hello, hello.
Gorgeous.
Can we sing together?
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, I am alone, no matter how many. Great. Maybe down a tiny bit, but that's good.
I'll just sit down. Okay.
Oh, nice. That's all good. Oh, do you want to get people? Oh, yeah, maybe. Okay. I'll pop this down. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'll pop this.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, you're very tall. There you go. If I could just grab everyone's attention, please, quickly. Just want to direct everyone's attention towards the stage where we'll be doing a very cool performance. So if I could get a few people in the room. I don't feel like the sound is not traveling very well, but that's okay. Everybody who's in the room can hear me. Oh, there we go. If I could just direct everyone's attention towards the performance space. There's a bit of a disconnect in the sound. It's okay, there we go. I feel like I need to make a loud noise, but I'm not going to do that. I'm also very short for this mic. Okay. Just get it going. Okay. Well, without further ado, everyone, Mika James.
I'm not sure. Hi, before I begin, I'd just like to acknowledge that we're on the stolen lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people. Acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded and that a treaty has never been signed, and that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. My name is Mika James, and I'm very excited to be here, and I'm going to play 4 really quick ones. And then She lost her baby and the child. I only here for a little only human, a mother to a child. She lost her baby, oh I am their child. Let her breathe, oh let her breathe. Let her breathe, oh let her breathe. Naive people's faces when love so great is so unkind. One thing I learned when I was 5 is that pain makes you, it makes you blind. So I didn't anticipate that much tuning, but if you want to come in, this is strange. Anyway, so this one, I don't know. I wasn't gonna do this one, and I finished it in the Uber today. The poor Uber driver had me like, wait, yeah, but I really like it, so I'm gonna play it for you anyway. our tune, I'd like to invite my best mate, bandmate, housemate up onto the stage to do some harmonies with me. I made it really hard for myself making it that far away from the microphone. But this one, I feel like I don't normally write like songs about romance because I do feel like it's a bit of a snooze fest sometimes. But this one I wrote. One of my friends brought their bad relationship to me, and I thought I'd write this as a little anthem we could sing together. And now, like, all of my 9 housemates seem to be going through breakups, so we both sing this together. So I thought I'd play it because I've been loving it recently. So words I'd like to say. 13 pages in my diary. A minute for a call. This doesn't have to take long at all. I'm alone, no matter how many people I'm around. What is love if not a war? I'm alone, no matter how many people I'm around. What is love if not a war? Should I pick up the phone or let it die? What is man if not direct to love? When will my mind be at ease again? When will my body be whole? I'm alone, no matter how many people I'm around. What is love if not a war? I'm alone, no matter how many people I'm around. What is love if not a war? Pedestal. How dare you? 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 Alone, no matter how many people I'm around. What is love if not a whole? Okay, this is my last one. Thank you again for having me. My name's Mika James, and I love the push. So this is great, a great day, and you're all lovely people. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Guitar a little bit lower, right? here I am waiting on this beach for a wave to crash close to me, and I know that the tide takes some time. I am just a little bored and just a little restless, so I stay here waiting on this beach for a wave to crash close to me. Oh, heavy I am now. Oh, love's not here right now. Oh, the ocean is growling, and so is my body. Body stands still, but my body is crashing down to the water. My mind, it does wonder, how long do I wait for this water? But I am the ocean, and the ocean, it is me. But it doesn't mean that right now that I need to be my body. Oh, heavy I am now. Our love's not here right now. And I know that I'm wrong, and that love is always here, and that my mind's not my body isn't me. But these things take time, and the tide, it is ready. So I'll wait right here for this wave. Oh, heavy I am now. Oh, love's not here right now. Oh, heavy I am now. Oh, love's not here right now. Thank you so much.
Nice. Awesome.